These are some tips for learning new pieces. So when you first get a new piece, these are some of the things that you might wish to talk about. So the first thing you might want to do is examine the time signature. If you're playing a piece like Tárrega's Lágrima, thinking about the 3/4 time signature, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Making sure you really know what it is and that you're feeling it before you even begin playing, that's a really good first tip. The second tip is you might want to look at the key signature just before you begin, just to make sure you know all, like this Lágrima is in E major, so knowing your major scale and what notes are going to be in there, so like E, F sharp, G, A, B. If you know that G sharp is there when you start the piece, you'll just be a little bit more aware of what you're about to do. Now, of course, one thing that you always want to do with every new piece is play the melody on its own. If you have a piece like Lágrima, you want to know how simple the melody is. You want to isolate that simple melody and make sure you're shaping it in a really beautiful way before you add all the other complicated notes. That way, when you put it all together, if you know you want your melody to go maybe crescendo, louder, louder, relax, then when you play the piece, then you can follow that shaping that you learned when you learned the simple melody. You always want your pieces to be nice and simple sounding. Even if they're complicated, the audience just gets to hear this very simple, beautiful thing. So playing the melody on its own is a very good tip. And you could also play all the other voices on their own as well, but definitely the melody. You want to map out your positions, so like knowing clearly that, I'm in second position, then third position, and then fifth position. So wherever your first finger is based on, that's your position. And when you switch positions, your thumb should move along with your hand. So making sure that you do that. Of course, learn difficult chord shapes. There's the basic chord shapes in this, but you could play it on its own, right? Instead of all the accompaniment, you could just play it as a chord. Or if it's the top part, if you can't play the chord shapes on your own, your left hand might not know what to do. So make sure you practice those chord shapes on their own. And that way, when you practice the melody on its own, then if you know the chord shapes and you know the melody, then you can put those two things together much more easily than if you just tried to dive into the piece without any preparation. Of course, isolate the technical challenges. So just take a pencil, circle that area of your score that you know is the tricky part, and practice that much more than the rest of the parts. I often will do that. I'll go through a piece, circle the technical parts, and then I will just practice just those before even playing the piece. So I'll just let those hard parts kind of digest for a week or two before I even start practicing the piece. I'll work on something else, but at the beginning of my practice session, I'll work on that isolated difficult part. That way, when you go to play your piece, when you get to that hard part, you've already practiced it for a week or two, and you're kind of more, the hard parts of the piece and the easy pieces of the piece are a little bit more similar now. It's not like it's so easy and then bang, there's this hard part. You've actually isolated that difficult part and made it much more easy. Of course, practice slowly, really slowly. Making sure that each chord shape and each melody note has been placed perfectly, close to the fret, with curved fingers on your fingertips, with good technique, good rhythm. Use a metronome to make sure you're playing right in time. And then you can go so slowly that you don't even have to do all the shapes. Like this part's pretty tough up here. But you can do it just one at a time. This one, success. This one, success. Success. You know, making sure that each one is successful. If you can't do that, how are you supposed to play it all in a row really smoothly and legato if you can't play each one individually? So those are just a few tips and ways to approach new pieces. So I hope you apply that to whatever piece you're starting now.